Nigeria has officially been announced as a partner country by this year's chair of Brazil. They have been announced as a partner country for the BRICS economic conglomerate. This is the biggest economic shift we have ever seen in our history. And I want to tell you why this is so important and the trends that you can look forward to seeing in 2025 and beyond if you are interested in investing sustainably in this economic shift. Welcome to the channel. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I teach successful entrepreneurs and investors how to successfully travel, move, and do business here on the continent of Africa. I'm also the founder of the Africa Investors Academy, which is a global community of entrepreneurs and investors that are doing business, that are getting their lives transformed by living on the continent, traveling to the continent, and getting invested in businesses in real estate, tourism, agriculture, consumer goods, and mining. So if this type of content resonates with you, be sure to subscribe to the channel. So I have my notes. This is a huge one and I cannot wait to share. It's gonna be long, but stay to the end to figure out how you can get expert advice on how to invest in BRICS, if that's of interest, okay? So as I mentioned, Nigeria was announced as the second largest African nation to join the BRICS economic conglomerate. So if you're new here, I love talking about BRICS as an economist and someone that is just really passionate about doing business here in Africa. I love sharing this content. So jump in with me if you're new. The BRICS economic conglomerate is foundationally formed by the countries of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, an alliance that is fostering economic cooperation, trade, and development upon these emerging economies, okay? Then they got some member countries to join forces with them. And these countries included Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. Did I say that? Yes. Oh, so exciting, so exciting. Well, what all does this mean? Well, if you're new here again, the goal of BRICS is to allow developing countries to develop without the sole need of Western banks like the IMF or even Western currencies like the US dollar, right? And so BRICS has formed and they have been an allegiance and an alliance, and it's not perfect, but it's growing. And signs like Nigeria joining, which is again, the second largest African nation by economic growth, right? But not by population. It's one of the most populated countries in the world, as well as one of the most resourceful economies in the world. This is huge, okay? BRICS nations account for well over 50% of the world's population and a significant share of the global GDP, over 50% now of the global GDP. According to Brazil, both BRICS and Nigeria, right, share a commitment to strengthening cooperation amongst the global South nations and pushing for reforms in international institutions. So this is happening. And I know all of the naysayers, y'all come to the comments. It makes for great engagement. This is happening. And just because we don't understand a thing or we have a set of beliefs that doesn't support the new thing doesn't make it not true, right? So there's been a lot of growth. There's been a lot of chatter. And unfortunately, mainstream media is showing us things that they want us to see, which aren't necessarily the things that are challenging their dominion. And why does this matter? Well, it matters because the West that we have always known is no longer what we've always known it to be. Things are changing. It's a declining economy, a declining superpower, and ultimately a declining empire that is declining. It is dwindling in its influence, and staying attached to it, whether physically, emotionally, financially, or all of the above, is going to leave you at the mercy of what ultimately the economy is in the country itself is experiencing, right? So if you're in the US, you know that America is declining in infrastructure. We saw this last week or the week before with the horrific wildfires that spread and ruined thousands of homes, devastated communities where people lost their life. And while this isn't anything to praise or celebrate, it is only something to take note of. We've seen bridges falling. We've seen roads crumbling. We see the constant chaos happening between state and government, church and government. The society is at the brink of collapse. But we're also very well aware of the declining education system, healthcare system, and currency that is just the facts. This isn't fun. This isn't something that I'm excited to share. The excitement comes from the fact that as an economist and as someone that does a ton of research on this, you don't always know what you're doing when you're doing it. But when you research and you pay attention to the trends and you don't make emotional decisions based on systematic thinking that you're programmed into believing, and you actually expose yourself to some alternative ways of thinking, I can't help but just realize that that is the part that pays off, right? So if you're interested in learning more about BRICS, of course, stay tuned to this channel, but we dive deeper into how you can actively and sustainably invest in doing business in countries where you can actually invest in this growth, right? So let's move away from the doom and gloom and say, okay, what do you do now? First things first, you're already doing the best thing, you're researching, and I've linked several videos below, as I always do. There's also a BRICS playlist for you to start to watch so you can catch up, right, with what's been happening. But I encourage you, do your research. Recognize that regardless of what you may see happening in your country, this is a one-sided perspective. There are international media outlets that you can access here on YouTube that are going to paint a different story. Never buy into one story, create the mosaic for yourself and move accordingly, right? And so first steps, you're already doing that work by doing your research here. But if you have a desire to learn more, of course, stay tuned to the end and I'll share with you some of the ways in which I'm helping our investors in the Africa Investors Academy get front-line access to investment opportunities here in South Africa, okay? So why is this important, not only for the future, but for the future of Africa? Well, there are so many initiatives, right? But the goal is to reduce reliance upon the US dollar in trade. So before and still currently today, in order for, let's say, Egypt to trade with South Africa, they would have to take their respective currencies and trade them into US dollars to purchase said commodity, right? I know certain countries, they have trade deals which say you cannot trade your oil with any other country with me. It's like exclusivity rights, exclusive agreement, right? But in doing that, you have to trade your currency, which oftentimes is of less value in theory to this currency, which is a higher value. I'll change it because you guys are opposite of me, right? So what does that mean? That means I've got to take my currency and trade it into the USD, which is a way more expensive currency. I'm losing value in my currency to then purchase a good from a country at a price based on this said trade agreement. And this keeps underdeveloped countries underdeveloped because they have to go through a middleman, which has been the Federal Reserve, to actually trade the things that they need. What we're also seeing now are countries saying, like these economic conglomerates like BRICS, but we're seeing this on the continent with Eastern Africa, right? The EAC or the SADC, the SADC region, or the ECOWAS, right? This is on the continent based on sub-Saharan Africa, where they are instituting these organizations of regional trade. Are they perfect? Absolutely not, but they are definitely a step in the right direction. And we're seeing that, right? We're seeing it happen, and it's super exciting to see. So this presents opportunities for the diaspora, which is the most valuable resource of the continent of Africa, to redefine economic partnerships. Okay, so by reducing reliance on the USD, BRICS countries are actively working to reduce their reliance on the USD by international trade. Okay, this aims to basically mitigate the risks tied with doing business with the US. So in the past, you may be familiar with these things called tariffs, or what is it called? Not tariffs, but tariffs, but that's just another word for high taxing or penalty, right? There's another word that I'm looking for, but it will come back to me. Sanctions, right? Sanctions, where, oh, we don't like what you did, so we're gonna sanction you. You can't use our dollar. You can't use our payment system, which keeps countries from being able to trade if the only way they can trade is using the USD. We've seen this happen. It's currently still happening, and it's not cool. It's not cool. People are becoming economic, well, not people, but economic bullying is not okay. If kids bullying other kids is not okay, then how can it be okay for countries to bully other countries? And they've been doing it. People that are in the US that are melanated versions, majority of y'all, whether you want to believe it or not, were there, brought there forcibly. You did not want to go there. You were bullied. Well, you weren't, but your ancestors were, in the form of enslavement. I know my ancestors were, okay? Now, maybe that's not you, and if that's not you, then don't worry about it. You're missing the point. But ultimately, economic bullying essentially is not okay. And this trend, right, this economic conglomerate is essentially not here for it, right? And it is aiming to mitigate those risks of sanctions, tariffs, and the fluctuating of their currency based on if they've made someone happy or not, right? The impact, increasing the use of local currencies to be able to trade, and commodities. People can trade more, and they can strengthen their own currency by trading amongst each other without using an intermediary like the Federal Reserve or the US dollar. What is the opportunity here? Well, investors can explore trade opportunities with BRICS-aligned currencies, consider investments in Forex markets and others, right? So one of the things that I always say here on the channel, open bank accounts in different countries. See what's happening there. See what's happening with currencies in developing and emerging markets that are actually producing, that have access to strong agriculture, strong resources, strong capital, strong human capital, right? And C, open up a bank account, right? This is not financial advice, just purely information, a couple $100 to see if the systems work on your behalf, and then move accordingly, right? So super excited about that. The rise of the development bank, which is the new development bank located in Johannesburg, South Africa, where I currently live, is essentially issuing opportunities for development and growth in these different countries, right? That are not loans in the way that they've previously been issued, right? They're in exchange for goods, services, commodities, and or like resources, right? So every country that is a part of BRICS has something to bring to the table. And this is the goal of BRICS. There is also a technology and innovation boom. Things that are happening on this side of the world from a technology and innovation perspective with AI and digital infrastructure are far, far, far ahead of our Western counterparts, right? And these nations are becoming hubs for innovation, offering alternatives to like these conglomerate, monopolist places like Silicon Valley, right? They're popping up all over the world, in India, in China, in East Africa, in Southern Africa, in West Africa. It's no longer exclusive to these specific spaces, right? I'm super excited. I cannot wait to make this announcement. I'm going to be attending an event speaking specifically on why I decided to move here to South Africa, one of the BRICS founding nations, in a country that is a new partner of BRICS, and I am so excited. But stay tuned for that. When I'm ready to make the announcement, I will. But it's just too juicy to not share soon. But I'm really, really excited about that. There is, again, a global demand for natural resources. So, if you're living in the West and you're seeing the repercussions of high processed food, GMO production, lab produced meat, I can't even believe I'm saying all of those words together. Failing education systems, failing healthcare systems, the need for natural resources are only going up. And where are those located? They're not located in the Western G7 countries, right? All of them. So I really just want you to open your perspective and recognize that regardless of what you understand or you believe to be true, one of the things that I stress in our community around investing and doing business are two specific sectors that I'm mentioning here, but how I'm personally invested, I share that exclusively with the students inside the Afrika Investors Academy. So those natural resources and specific natural resources, mining, agriculture, and energy industries, which I mentioned we do a lot of in the Afrika Investors Academy, of the first two, present lucrative opportunities for investors. And you don't have to start off massive. You don't have to be rich. And I don't want to scare you and think, oh, this is just too much, it's overwhelming, because yes, it can be, but the more you know, the more knowledgeable decisions that you can make moving forward. Don't just stand still because it feels scary. Get in community with people that are taking these actions small by step by step, day by day, that are learning the lessons that they can share with you. Okay, whether it's me, whether it's other creators here, whether it's articles, I encourage you, do your due diligence to learn more. I'm talking so fast because I'm so excited. Can you tell how passionate I am about this topic and why we as a community of people always end up on the bottom because we're uninformed? Well, no longer do you have the excuse of being uninformed, because BRICS is transforming the world stage. It's transforming the world economy, and it is the future of the world, but also the future of Africa. Okay, and it's happening now. I'm seeing it happen now. One of the biggest trends that I see happening is around the real estate investing. Real estate investing is real estate as a growing asset class in these BRICS countries, rapidly expanding. I'm talking about expanding. I've been here in Cape Town looking at property, and the rental rates are increased by 30%. Now, I'm not saying that this is okay. It's also, it's a lot. It's not an easy shift to experience, but having learned and making my conscious decision of moving to South Africa as a BRICS founding country, I knew that some things were going to happen in South Africa that have never happened in the history of South Africa. And I'm seeing it happen right now, where property markets are seeing a significant growth, South Africa being one of them. South Africa's crown mother city was named the best city in the world, and it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence, okay? Investors have an opportunity to explore real estate development, properties, and renting properties, or REITs. Our property investor group, we successfully closed our first property investor group round this past in 2024, and we're doing more of that upcoming this year. So if you want to stay tuned, for sure, you definitely want to be on my email list at the very least, because there's only so much we can talk about here on YouTube. I send weekly emails, sometimes 2 to 3, 4 a week to that email community. But for folks that are ready to hit the ground running, you just need a little bit more insight. You definitely want to join us inside the Afrika Investors Academy. We're doing group coaching bi-weekly. We've got private events, special events, retreats, bringing in all the experts in real estate, mining, tourism, consumer goods, and agriculture to the front stage so that you can learn how to get invested by making informed decisions, right? Informed decisions so that you can actively grow wealth, but ultimately live a better quality of life in an emerging market where, honestly, they're just doing it better. They're just doing it right. But overall, what does this mean? Right? What does this mean? There is increased focus on the continent of Africa. There is an increased focus. Africa has always been in the light. But one of the things that the media has done so well is that they continue to focus on the worst case scenario, keeping you in fear, keeping you stuck on these inflated crime rates, this corruption, and this idea that the people living here have access to nothing. And while, yes, there is a community of people that are impoverished, just like there are in Western countries, there are a community of people that don't have access to the best real estate, the best healthcare, the best education, just like there are in Western countries. The majority of this continent is so rich that even people living in conditions that we would deem impoverished in Western countries have joy, have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, have access to their land and their mother tongue and their spirituality that ultimately keeps them at peace, knowing that they are living in a place, in an environment that allows them to self-actualize and feel their fullest selves. Is this all? No, it's not. But I challenge you to tell me a place where that is the case, right? Where that is the case. And I'm saying, as someone that has come from the Western world that was super successful in these spaces, that have seen doctors, government officials, diplomats, attorneys, teachers even, right? Educators, real estate investors do things in the West and be super successful. They've come here, they've tripled their net worth in 1 year by not living in environments where they're heavily taxed, where their dollars go further, where they can impactfully contribute to a community where they feel safe. They can create jobs, and they can ultimately have a better standard and quality of life. I'm seeing it happen every day. But it takes a risk. It takes taking the time to do something that nobody else is willing to do, which is at least start, right? And so I invite you, do you want to learn my strategy of how I'm actively investing in BRICS? Well, for the first time ever, I'm going to be revealing that to the investors in the Africa Investors Academy coming up in March. We're doing a huge Africa Investors Academy virtual summit, and that is going to be exclusively now for members only. So your early bird access ticket will give you membership inside the community, which is for private events, which is for private group coaching, resources, strategy, and all of the things that we've been able to build and do over the last 4 years of me living here on the continent of Africa. And I'd love to have you there. Don't say I haven't shared with you, but there are things that I personally don't feel like sharing here on YouTube because I love my life. It's amazing, it's beautiful, but I do want to share with you, those that want to hear, please join us. You will not be disappointed. In fact, you'll be able to take insights to your community, right? So this is for highly educated investors, people that are interested, that, just want to know a little bit more. If you don't have an interest, this isn't for you, right? But if you're serious about transforming your life and your family's life and your ability to earn and retain your wealth in the biggest wealth and economic transfer we've ever seen in history, then I invite you to join us in the Africa Investors Academy. The link is in the description below. Be sure to join us before we close registration, which we will be doing, right? But we're gonna be really intentional about how we move this year, because BRICS is growing, the continent of Africa is growing, economic opportunity is growing, but the best thing ever that we can do for ourselves is invest in ourselves and our ability to create a better life for ourselves and our families. Okay, so until the next video, guys, I'll see you soon.